popular name in North India, Kenneth Anderson was popular in South India for hunting man-eaters. Both had expertise in hunting rogue animals as well as excellent storytelling. Both were known for shikar in the colonial India. Both loved the wildlife and preferred to shoot with their cameras rather than their guns. But when it was inevitable, they picked their guns. Their vivid storytelling catches the attention of the readers and makes an interesting reading. Kent Anderson was a Scottish national but settled down in India. His father, Aryan Stewart Anderson, worked in Pune in an honorary rank of a captain. His mother, Lucy Ann Taylor, was a granddaughter of John Taylor, who received honors from Sir Mark Cubbon in the form of a land in Bangalore. Anderson studied in Bangalore and also worked in the British aircraft factory in Bangalore, which later was called HAL. He married Blossom Hyacinth Minette and had two children. He died of cancer in 1974. Anderson had great passion and concern for nature and the wildlife. His love for Indian lore, jungles, and wild forests is well known. As a hunter, he killed only man-eaters and animals that had turned rogue. He also killed sloth bears, leopards, hyenas, etc. His writings reveal his talent for storytelling, his respect for the tribal's knowledge of the jungles, his keen observation, and his keen eye for the vivid details as he went into the jungles in search of wild beasts. He spoke Kannada and Tamil and traveled widely within India and its jungles. His works include Nine Man-Eaters and One Rogue, 1954, the, the Black Panther of Shivanipalli, and Other Adventures of the Jungle, 1959, and many more. Purnachandra Tejasvi translated some of his books into Kannada titled Kadina Kategalu. Actually, it is Kadina Kategalu, but when you read it, it is Kadina Kategalu. But it is not that. It is Kadina Kategalu. Kadu is forest, Kathegalu is stories. So, Kadina Kathegalu. Now, the lesson is very interesting, so I did not try to edit any part of it. The text, as we begin, is very interesting and we will get to know more about it. The Ramapuram tiger is an exciting story of the man-eater in Ramapuram locality near Biligiri Rangana Hills of Kollegal district. As in Thomas Hardy's novels, the topography of Biligiri Rangana Hills comes alive in the story of Kent Anderson. It also provides an account of the life of the Sholagas or Soligas, a tribe living in the locality. An interesting account of life in the forests and understanding the wildlife is presented to the reader with clinical precision. The beauty of the forests, the thickets, and the greenery makes Anderson fall in love with it, and the wildlife in these jungles inspire him to bring us exciting narratives. Ramapuram Tiger is an account of his expedition into the jungles spread across Karnataka and Tamil Nadu borders to kill a man-eater. The tiger, which usually picked cattle from the nearby villages, turns a man-eater when it is severely caught and wounded in a trap set by a planter. Severely bruised while trying to escape from the trap, the tiger picks its first human victim in the form of a young girl who is the wife of a Sholaga named Jaken. Jaken turns a grieving witness to the horrible incident. In this expedition and exploration of the jungle in search of the tiger, Anderson explores the mindscape of his own self and that of the villagers. The humanity of Anderson gets a witness when he leaves a tigress and her cubs unhurt during his attempt to follow a drag. The idea that the tiger was waiting for him while he went in search of it, and the idea of imminent death, makes him philosophical towards the end. Anderson also talks about intuition and providence that play significant role in the life of a shikar. This is the story of a tiger that for 3 months held sway over nearly half a district, an area some 60 miles long by another 60 or so broad. Although his reign was comparatively short, it was nevertheless hectic, for during this short time the Ramapuram tiger was literally here, there, and everywhere within the 3,600 square miles of his domain. Like the scarlet pimpernel, he was sought by all, yet found by none, till his end came in an unexpected manner. The district of North Coimbatore is largely made up of hills and forest, bounded on the south by the low-lying plains of Coimbatore proper. It rises abruptly to the Dimbum escarpment. On the southwest are the jungles of the Nilgiri or Blue Mountain range. On the west, the forests of Mysore. To the northwest is another high range of hills, the Biligiri Rangans. North, northeast, and eastwards flows the Kaveri River. Clothed on both its banks with heavy jungle, the northeastern and eastern portions abutting on the forests of the district of Salem. Just try to imagine this beauty and the kind of severity. There is only one town worthy of that name in the district of North Coimbatore, Kollegal, which lies at the northwestern corner, scarcely 8 miles from the Kaveri. 4 roads branch out of Kollegal. Those that run westwards and northwards into Mysore play no part in this story. The third leads southwards and is more or less straight and runs along the eastern base of the Biligiri Rangan hills. 17 miles along this road brings one to the large village of Lokanhalli. 13 miles beyond Lokanahalli is Bailpur, where the bison range begins and reaches to Hasanpur at the 48th milestone and to Dimbam at the top of the escarpment, 52 miles from Kollegal. The fourth road leads in an southeasterly direction and cuts through the village of Ramapuram, about 25 miles from Kollegal, where it turns southwards and leads to Bargur. 24 miles further on and then to Tamarakarai, another 5 miles, and finally to the southeastern end of the Dimbam escarpment, where it drops sharply to the village of Andiur on the plains. This road totals about 81 miles in length. I hope you get the idea where it is located. The Kollegal Lokanahalli Bailur Dimbam road carried sparse lorry traffic and a daily bus service, whereas the road to Ramapuram, Tamarakari, and Andiur was unfit for motor traffic, except jeeps or old-fashioned high-clearance American cars over the last 60 miles of its length. The terrain is fearful, consisting of sharp rising and falling gradients strewn with boulders. It becomes a narrow track, cut deeply by the wheels of bullock carts and hemmed in on both sides by dense forest. The sandy and often rocky beds of forest streams cross and recross this track at intervals. In the deeper valleys, vast areas of the mighty bamboo prevail, the drooping stems touching the hood of the car as it labors and chugs along in lower gear with its radiator invariably boiling. Occasionally, a fallen bamboo stem or the broken branch of a tree lies across the track, torn down to appease the ravenous appetite of an elephant. The driver then halts and, with his axe or chopper, as it is here called, cuts away the obstruction and drags it aside, then moves on until he meets another similar obstruction. Without the handy chopper, this track would be impossible. That you can just imagine. I'm taking you on a trekking. Tigers normally dislike very dense vegetation and keep to low scrub jungle, but it is preferred by elephants and bison. The tiger has various reasons for its preference. One being that almost impenetrable undergrowth prevents the tiger from carefully stalking his prey and hinders his terribly effective last minute charge. Another reason is that the tiger's legitimate prey, deer of all kinds, wild pig, and of course village cattle, do not enter very dense jungle, which is mainly inhabited by elephants and bison, of which the tiger generally keeps clear. A third reason is that thick undergrowth harbors insect pests such as lichis, many species of animal ticks, and the horse or animal fly, as it is called in India. Tigers have a great aversion to these pests. See who is afraid of mosquito bites. The Ramapuram man-eater was reported to have come from the banks of the Kaveri river, from the region of a mountain known as Ponnachai Malai, over 6,000 feet in altitude. A few minor coffee estates owned by Sholagas or other Indian planters exists on the slopes of this mountain. It is said that the Ramapuram man-eater began his career as an ordinary cattle lifter that made a habit of raiding these estates for what he could pick up in the way of domestic cattle belonging to the planters and the coolies. He is reported to have killed and eaten several cattle till one planter, more enterprising than his fellows, went down to Coimbatore city and purchased a gin trap of truly formidable appearance. Look who has started his job and career. A tiger. Interesting, huh? This trap was made of iron with two semicircular rows of teeth, which, when opened and held apart, had a spread of almost 2.5 feet. The teeth were about 2 inches long. The jaws were kept apart by a hair trigger arrangement, which, when released, allowed an exceptionally powerful spring to bring the jaws noisily together at lightning speed so that the wicked teeth meshed with each other. Soon afterwards, the tiger killed a milch cow, which is dragged into ravine and concealed beneath a heap of dried leaves without starting to feed. The kill was followed and discovered, and the trap was carefully set near the hindquarters of the cow, at which place the tiger would normally start operations when he returned for his meal. The same dried leaves that concealed the kill were used to hide the trap. The tiger returned, and to his bad luck and the future ill fortune of others, got his head in the trap, which caught him firmly on both sides of the neck, just behind the ears. Really bad luck for him. The trap had been anchored to the ground with a stake. The tiger tore at the trap and succeeded in uprooting the stake while the jaws held firm in his neck. He then rushed away into the jungle, dragging the heavy trap with him, till at a spot almost 2 miles distant, the trap got itself firmly wedged between two big rocks. The tiger tried to drag itself free but only succeeded in wedging the trap more firmly than before. The tiger roared with pain and struggled desperately. The roars were heard for half the night by the planter and his frightened coolies 2 miles away at their plantation. Finally, the animal broke loose, losing its left ear and eye in the process, with very severe injuries to the rest of the neck and face. It was heard in the area mourning with pain night and day for quite a week afterwards. How painful, right? But now, let's see what happens. Then came a period of absolute silence. Everyone thought the tiger had died of its wounds. The planter and his hirelings kept a careful watch for vultures, who would doubtless spot the carcass and betray the whereabouts of the dead animal by swooping to earth for their meal. But the only vultures seen were those soaring in the high heavens, carefully scanning the earth below for the signs of death. But none swooped, for the very good reason that the tiger was not dead. A fortnight passed, then one afternoon, along the path to one of the smaller coffee estates, climbed Jacob, a Sholaga, and his 18-year-old spouse in accordance with the established Indian custom. Jacob walked in front with the women about a yard behind him, carrying a sack of grain balanced on her head. They had crossed a dry stream bed and were just climbing its slight embankment when, out of a clump of grass like sugarcane that grows only along river banks in these areas, a tiger pounced upon the girl, throwing her onto the earth. Poor girl. Turning, Jacob saw his wife lying on the ground, gazing at him with terror-stricken, pleading eyes. The tiger crouched upon her back, its two paws overlapping her shoulders, the wide open mouth just above her head. It was a tiger with no left eye and no left ear, while the wounds on its neck and face had not yet healed. Jacob was turned to stone. He could not move and he could not speak, but remained rooted to the spot in horror and amazement. The tiger snarled horribly, contorting its already lacerated features into a still more horrible mask. Then it grabbed the girl by her right shoulder and walked across the stream with its prey. The girl hung head downwards, her loose hair and left arm and legs dragging in the sand. A moment later, the tiger and the girl had disappeared in the jungle on the further side. Evidently, the poor woman had swooned, or may already have died of fright. That was the last Jacob ever saw of his wife, nor had she uttered the slightest cry, even at the moment of attack. Brave girl indeed. Continuing in the next video, the other part of the story.